4 days. And then 3 more days. And the 3 days we're going to be fine tuning and getting your best cylinder. We'll be making and cutting your cylinder and then taking photos of them. You're able to keep one if you want, but you do not have to. It is not a requirement that you keep one, but if you do keep one, you have to trim it up. And I'm going to show you how to do that in just a minute. So let's start. I'm going to start by wedging my clay. And I'm just about that much time. So we wedge our clay. If you want to be exact, you can cut a half or a pound and a half off, go and weigh it on the scale. I'm just going to cut these in half. I'm not going to be exact with them. If I was making a set of something, I'd be exact, but I'm not. So. You're so quiet. It's good, I guess.
We're listening.
You're listening for the clay to tell you it's done. All I know is there's a really good chance that I don't wedge enough.
Yeah. There's also good.
The what? All right, we're going to cut this in half. Set that aside. Pat that down. Go ahead and seal it up. Cone it up, and as I'm doing this, think about where you've struggled the most over the last little bit that you've been on the wheel. I'm going to press this down. And as I do that, my left thumb goes right off the center, right hand goes on top of my thumb. It's so important that your hands are touching. Push down, and it's still wobbling. So the next thing we're going to do is refine it. So I'm going to push in, it's going to move up. It hits my right hand, and I guide it up, down, back in, down, and I'm just going to feel for that clay to stop fighting me. The side should be pretty close to straight up and down, and it should have a decent curve over the top. It should not be flat, and it should not concave in. All right, I'm going to open it. My left thumb creates a little knob. I'm going to create a scoop there. Are you duck calling back there? And I do this through a sponge. You don't have to do it through a sponge. I just like to. I don't have to add water. And a lot of my work is done, the movement of the clay is done at my hips and with my shoulders. I let my upper body do most of my pressing. It's not actually my hands. So as you're pushing on the clay, just kind of lean into it, and it should work and move pretty well. All right, we're going to pull this towards us. Ring finger and middle finger are going to pull towards our thumb. Just gently squeeze that outward, not too quick. And then I'm going to take the water out. Now I can already tell there's a little bit of cracking. I'm going to compress the bottom. It's a little thick at the bottom. And there's a little bit of cracking up top. If you get this cracking, before I lift it, what I want to do is just hold here, take my sponge, and press down. This sponge is becoming good. All right. Now, I've just pressed on it. That compresses that. Take the water out. And now I'm going to lift it up. So I know from the very beginning, we did the eagle and we drove down, we're like, ah, and everyone's like, this is so weird. And I still transfer out of this class. This hand position is so important for you. Your thumbs are both on the outside, your index fingers are straight across from each other, and then you're backing up your index fingers with your other fingers. And you're going to be pushing in and guiding the clay. Some of you are still throwing like this. And as you do that, the clay runs up your hand and out, and then you can never get it all the way back in. But with your hands like this, you can easily tip your right hand towards the center. It's a lot harder to do it this way. If you don't believe me, whatever. So we're going to come here, push in at the bottom, start to lift. As I start to lift, I'm going to tilt inward. Okay, we're going to do that again. Lift and tilt. If I don't tilt inward, it's going to go out, and then the next one's going to go out more, and that's going to be a huge problem for you. Now, you can get your whole hand in there, great. My middle finger is going in there. You can also stretch this out a little bit. Grab that clay. So I'm pushing under and pushing my outside hand into my inside index finger and lifting. I am not pushing back, I'm just supporting. I get to there, and I slowly let go. That's a nice tall cylinder. So on your sheet, I gave you some basic parameters for size. Okay, we're going to rib this. So I'm going to use the round part of my rib on a flat part of my cylinder. I could use the flat part and that's fine, but as a beginner, you'll tend to catch more. This little edge or this edge tends to grab. So I use the round part. So I'm just going to come here. I'm holding the rim up top. I'm not trying to shape it. I'm just trying to compress the clay. Get up to the top. And now I'm going to clean off the outside. When we clean out the outside, we're going to use a wood knife for this. When we get to bowls, we're going to use a wood rib. But when we clean it off, it's got to be wet. I've got to hold it stable, and I'm just going to barely press down and in. If it starts to wobble, I mean my cylinder, one of three things is happening. One, my tool is too dry. Two, I'm pushing too quickly. And three, I'm making it too thin. The cylinder itself, if it's too thin, it'll start to wobble. So I'm just holding that steady, kind of looking down. And then I'm going to clean this off, that whole band. And a lot of people will come here and try to clean it up by pushing on it. What I like to do is cut under it, then you cut it out. You should be able to peel most of that away. So you cut under and then release it. And then we can come and clean that up. Just that simple, in theory. Okay, let's measure this. I've got a ruler. Oh, 6.5, almost 6 3/4 inches tall. 3 3/4. My walls are at 1/4 inch. That's a good looking cylinder. I've cleaned it up. It's straight up and down. I'm going to take my wire tool, push straight down. I'm going to cut halfway under and then straight up. And then I go like this, and I'm going to set a tool here. Now, for you, the first day you're back and you make a cylinder, take a photo just like this. Take a photo of your second one, your third one. You only need to turn one photo in, but it should be what you consider to be your best piece, okay? And this needle tool or a wood knife or a ruler tells me thickness, it tells me how thick the bottom is, it kind of shows me a bunch of stuff. But this again, that's telling you what I'm looking for, roughly, okay? So this was how tall? 6.5 inches. Gonna clean that off. 25 minutes, perfect. All right, motivation. Intrinsic, extrinsic. Both are in play in a lot of things. Is there anything specific you want me to cover with the throwing steps? So, like right here, I cone it up.
Yeah, and then after you go back down, how you get that shape?
How I get the kind of the dome shape.
Like the cylinder.
Okay, so after I open it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll come here and we'll get it there. All right, we're gonna open it. So I create a little scoop and push into the middle and push down. I'm like flying on the wheel. Slow my wheel down. If you're ever just flying, push your pedal away from you so you can't stomp on it really hard. Sometimes I get so excited about what I'm doing, I go too fast, and then I'm like, oh, I should have slowed down. Okay, we create an opening, and then we're going to create an opening towards us so it's flat and straight up and down. Ring finger and middle finger going to pull towards my thumb. Nice and slow, nice and controlled. If it's not square, you're not going to be able to grab that clay and lift it. You can round, but you're not going to be able to lift this straight up and in. Take the water out. This is where we do the eagle. So I'm going to push through a sponge, and this is what you're talking about right now, right? So as we do this, pressure's coming from my index finger and my thumb, inside, outside. My thumbs are touching, and I'm as far down as I can. My elbows are touching, my legs. I'm going to push in with my index finger and kind of squeeze with my thumb. So I'm just creating like this claw. We're going to push in, let that start to move, and then we're going to lift. Now, if I just lift straight up, it's going to go out. So I've got to lift up, and then take my outside hand and push in. Now, my inside hand is supporting. There's pressure, but it's not pushing back. I'm not trying to push at the same pressure. It's more like 85%, 15%. It's supportive, but it's not pushing back. Three and a half inches. All right, so let's talk about grading, motivation, and some other things real quick. See if I can't ruin your day. Because that's my favorite thing, is to ruin your day. Here's the deal. I'm going to a conference this weekend. I leave Friday or Thursday morning, and I'll be there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I come back Sunday. It's in Moab this year. And I get to hang out with other potters, other art teachers, and it's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. I also get to do a lot of hiking and some mountain biking, and I'm super excited about that. Thursday, I go to something, well, one of two things, and I don't know which one I'm doing yet, but probably both. One of them's called the Throwdown, and what we do is we get together as potters, and we find a local studio, and we rent it out for like 7 hours. And we go and we play with clay, and we have guest speakers, and we just sit there and talk, and we throw clay, and we sculpt stuff, and we're just goofing off for 7 hours. And we usually talk about teaching, we usually talk about motivation, we talk about our students, we talk about our projects, and there's all kinds of things we talk about. And every year, I get into arguments with people. about this. So here we go. Do you remember how tall I told you this was? 3.5 inches. That right there is about a C for this project. Okay, so let's keep going. Well, it's like a C minus, honestly. Right there. 4 inches. That's a solid C. Five inches, that's a solid B. That's getting awfully thin. Well, I'd probably grade that as like an A minus, but yeah, let's call that an A. Okay, and this is the argument I get into every time somebody brings up grading cylinders on the wheel. And I go, what if somebody spent the same amount of time, same amount of energy, and they got a 3-inch cylinder, and that is the best they can do. And they go, then they get a C. And I go, that's garbage. And they go, well, why is that garbage? Well, because their effort and energy says they deserve a better grade than that. And we usually get in a pretty good argument about it. And then they say something like, but if I don't have strict guidelines, their motivation will be low. And I say, I think the opposite. If we get their motivation high, it doesn't matter what they get in the end. It matters that they're putting forth effort. So, this is how I grade. Because I really don't want to demoralize you. That is not a C. Okay? If this is what you get, one, if you decide to cut that off and trim that up, that would make a nice little cup. This is like the size of cup I take when I take my vitamins in the morning. That's the size of when I fill it up with water. Right there. So what's wrong with that? But more importantly is this. You put in the effort, you put in the energy, and it's kind of demoralizing if I say, but you're not good enough. But then somebody else said, they just get it. And they didn't do anything. So let's talk about running for a second. Anyone in here, can you run a 7-minute mile? Anyone? Maybe a 7-minute mile? That's fantastic. What if I said to everybody in here, if you can't run a 7-minute mile, you're not getting an A? That would suck. And I don't know how PEs run here. But think of a 6-inch cylinder as a 7-minute mile. Some of you can just do it. Some of you are going to struggle with it. Could most of us work really hard to get there? Probably. Is it more than a semester's journey? Probably. So, as we're doing this is how I grade this project. And again, I get pushback from instructors, and they're like, but I don't know how you can get your students to be motivated. And I'm like, maybe my students are just better. Or maybe I'm just a better teacher. I think it's the former. I think Maple Mountain students, just in general, are better students. Not everybody, but most. Most of you are better students. Most of you do well. Most of you study, whatever. And we're just going to kind of run from there. But I don't want to... No, I'll just keep telling you how I'm going to grade. Or it's me. I think it's me. I think I'm the better teacher. They just suck. No, there's some pretty great teachers out there. they also only teach the way they were taught, which is that, well, a 3-inch cylinder is a C and a 4-inch cylinder is a, that's just what they were taught. And so that's how they do stuff. So how do I do it? You spent 7 class periods. Okay, participation points are important to me. Doing is important to me. And then when you're done, you took the photo, you filled out the response, and it's going to be a decent response. Like, it's going to be a small 2-paragraph response. I don't want the "it was good" response. You filled out the response, you thought about your process, you thought about what happened, you thought about the things that were hard, things that were good. And then you turn it in on time, and you get an A on it. It's that simple. And if your cut piece is 3 inches, 3.5 inches, a little bit wobbly, a little bit thick, it'll be okay. I'm not worried about it. I firmly believe that, well, I know this for a fact, you do not need to be a whiz on the wheel to graduate high school. I know that for a fact. Okay. Do I think it's cool? I do. I love the wheel so much. But I don't think you need to be great at it to graduate high school and move on in life. Do I think it's cool if you are good at it? I really do. Is it super complex? It really is. Do I still think that most of you will grasp it? I do. I think most of you will turn in 4.5, 5-inch, 5.5-inch cylinders. I really do. Not all of you. Some of you might get 6, 7-inch cylinders. Some of you might get 3-inch cylinders. I'm not too worried about it. I'm worried about effort. That's what I'm worried about. So, I threw a cylinder. On the first day, throw cylinders, take photos. On the second day, throw 1 or 2, take photos. If you want to save one, save a couple, and then you're going to trim them. I'm only allowing you to save 1. So you're going to take this, and now I want to show you a couple things before I cut this off. If you want to add some designs to it now, you could come in here and be like, I call this the Charlie Brown design. It's just a little up and down. It looks kind of like his shirt, right? Or we could come in here and we could do a little spiral going up and just supporting on the inside. And that's kind of cool. And that's really cool once it's thrown well. I've cleaned off the bottom. If you're going to save one, it's got to be fairly thin. I don't want to have things that are 3 inches thick. Okay, you've got to throw it well and or trim it up well. So let's talk about trimming real quick. And this is a really quick trimming demo. So I'm going to cut that off. I'm going to trim that one. And we're going to clean this up. I can't wait. I have some of your photos of mugs that have already come out glazed. And I can't wait to go down and show some of my colleagues. And I won't have them all because there's obviously they're not all done. So what I'm doing here is just I'm feeling for where it's hitting and not hitting. Where it hits, that means there's more clay between me and the center than the center and the other side. And this is a quick trimming demo. When we get to bowls, bottles, and vases next term, I'll do a bigger demo. It's hitting right there. Push that away to equalize that. Just so it's pretty close, right there. That's about right. And I'm going to create 3 little pieces. They should be about the size of your thumb. I call them clay turds. but you could call them lugs if you want to. It's not as cool. And I'm just gonna put them around, and that helps hold them in place. Kind of like a chock, which is what holds a car in place, or a door wedge, if you want to hold a door in place. And these three things are just gonna hold that in place. And then we're gonna trim it. 10 minutes, good. So all I'm gonna do with this is clean up the bottom a little bit and then taper the sides. I'm not gonna mess with it too much. Now, if there's a lot of clay here and you hand me your project, I'm like, oh, that's really heavy, which means it's really thick. We need to trim up more. We can spend more time on it. But I'm just gonna come here. This is like holding it like a paintbrush, like you're painting a house. Pencil, paintbrush. So we're going to come here, and I'm just going to just gently run that in the middle. I'm not pushing too hard. My clay is just a little bit wet. I just threw this 2 hours ago. It really should sit longer. But I forgot to throw these yesterday. Okay, so we clean that up just a little bit. I'll take a sponge to it in a second. And then I'm going to come here on the side. Just hit there. Now a little tip for this, just hold your loop tool, your trimming tool, in one place a whole lot longer than you thought. You're just going to hold it there with a little bit of pressure, and it's going to trim. And then I'm just going to take a sponge and gently smooth it up. You could also do this off the wheel, this sponge part. You don't have to have it spinning. What?
More fun this way.
Maybe, until it goes flying off the wheel, then it's kind of disheartening, but. You could come in and add texture this way too. Kind of fun. Okay, and then you're going to sign it. We've taken some of the weight off the bottom, we've cleaned it up, we made it look just a little bit nicer. You do not need to do this, right? You don't have to save one of these. It is not a requirement. You only get to save one if you choose to save one. I'm not going to fire 10 cups. I don't have the space or the time to do that for this project. Let me take that off, clean that up just a little bit. And that'll make a nice little cup. It'll make a nice little toothbrush holder, whatever for you. Paintbrush holder. I have a lot of these paintbrush holders, which is kind of nice. So that's that. Any questions there? Got just a couple minutes. Anything I need to go over? No. Should do we'll do a non-wedged piece. See what happens.
I actually want to see this.
You want to see this? Why didn't you ask for it? Oh, there's like a solid piece in the middle. So I hope to learn something cool at this conference. I usually do learn a tip or trick. I come in and try to teach it. If I'm not able to teach it now, I'll teach it later, another semester. If I don't learn anything, I'll get a whole bunch of hiking in, so. That'll be fun. Couple of things for you with the sub. If you're late, sign the tardy log. If you leave early and she writes your name down, it's a slough. If you're not working, that's a problem. Second thing is participation points for Thursday are going on next term's grade. So if you aren't here, you can make that up next week, but you need to make it up. It's a day that goes on the project. You need to make sure you're on top of that. If you have anything to turn in, grades are due, I think, Tuesday. So I won't be here Thursday or Friday, but, well, you really shouldn't have much to turn in. But if I've missed something, let me know. We can do that when we first come back. If you want to play around and do a shape something that you save, that's fine too.
So just prove that we don't need a wedge. That's what I'm saying.
You go right ahead. Here, there's a chunk up here. You can throw it right now.
Okay. Doesn't it leave air pockets though?
Yeah, I'm pushing through some air bubbles for sure. It's all right. There's a little bump right there. It's okay. I've seen many a video of some old masters, just people who've been doing this for a long time, and they're throwing on the wheel. Their stuff's never centered. They're just like, I'm just going for it. And then they put it in a gallery and they sell it for, $6,000 or whatever, and I'm like, well, that's pretty sweet. There's some pretty cool stuff out there though. All right, I'm done. Put your chairs up. You have turned in your cups. Make sure you get those turned in. Have a good week. And end of the term. It's kind of nice.
What's the highest cylinder you've ever made?
Throw it on the wheel. About 32 inches tall, with about 20 pounds of clay.
Where's the paper that we did last time?
It's under there.